Ever wonder what led John Wayne Gacy to be what he became? Well, today we're talking all about John Wayne Gacy and his childhood and what led up to his crimes. John Wayne Gacy was born March 17, 1942. He was from Chicago, Illinois, and his dad was John and his mom was Marion. He had two sisters and he was the middle child. His father was a car mechanic and also served in the war, and he was a harsh man, to say the least. We'll get there. His mother was a homemaker and they were raised Catholic. From the outside, they were the most typical Midwestern family. You guys all from the Midwest know how it is. They were perfect from the outside. They didn't have any issues. They were the perfect little family. He loved his sisters and his mother and had a great relationship with them. But from the outside, this perfect little family was anything but, because his dad and his relationship was... I don't even know how to explain it. His dad was a severe alcoholic and very abusive to not only the mother, but also the kids. Physically and emotionally, verbally, everything you could be. Dad belittled him in any way possible, always calling him lazy, fat, just saying a bunch of demeaning things to him. Gacy even said himself that one of his earliest childhood memories was his dad beating him at the age of 4. His mother did everything to shield her children away from the abuse that not only she was experiencing, but they were experiencing. But it just ended up making situations worse, because the father would then call him like not man enough or sissy, or belittle him with LGBTQ rhetoric that was just horrifying. One time, John Wayne Gacy was caught wearing his mother's underwear, and we're going to get into the underwear fascination thing here in a minute, but he got caught wearing his mother's underwear, and that just fueled the fire for his dad, who, of course, wanted to call him gay and just terrible, terrible things to a child, and not in a great way. I mean, this was belittling Gacy. As a child, John Wayne Gacy had this thing for underwear. He would take his mother's underwear. We don't know what he did with it, but then he would put it underneath the house. He would bury it underneath the house. And he was even caught doing this with a neighbor's underwear. He would steal his neighbor's underwear and then bury it. It was super strange. I don't know what the fascination was there, but that definitely was a point of contention when they found that out, for his mother and his father especially. In 1949, John Wayne Gacy got caught with another boy, and they were abusing a girl in the neighborhood. This made his dad fly off the handle angry at John Wayne Gacy, and he beat him pretty badly for this. And then in the same year, one of his dad's co-workers, a contractor, started messing around and essaying with Gacy himself. I think these two things just were very conflicted in his mind. Like, okay, I can't do this to someone else, but they can do it to me, is kind of the childhood thoughts in his head. Gacy never ended up telling anybody about the abuse because he was embarrassed and he thought that it would make his father angry. He was always looking for his father's love. He always wanted his father's love and affection. He always wanted his dad's approval and just never ever got it. It was really sad for that young boy who just wanted his dad to notice him and to love him, and he never got that back. Small little John Wayne Gacy even had a dog, and his dog was his best friend. He took the dog everywhere. He confided in the dog, and one day his father took the dog's life in front of him. Gacy, I think this was the most traumatic thing for him at the time, and he ended up burying the dog and stealing flowers from another grave to put onto the dog's grave. It was those kinds of things that just, I feel so bad for the child, John Wayne Gacy, because he really did go through enormous amounts of abuse. He was a heftier child. He was a heftier adult. He was just a bigger kid, and that wouldn't have been a big deal, but he also had a heart condition that restricted him from exercise. And so he not only was this chubby kid that got teased a lot, but he couldn't, in his mind, do anything about it. He was in the 4th grade. Gacy began to experiencing these blackouts where he would just lose everything and just black out. He was hospitalized for this condition. Between the ages of 14 and 18, he spent a lot of time in the hospital. He estimates about a year in total. He was in and out of the hospital a lot. He was a sick kid. And I think that also contributed to a lot of him and his dad's relationship issues, is his dad couldn't figure out why he couldn't just be a man and get over it. His dad even accused Gacy of faking it and that he was just lazy and didn't want to get out of the hospital bed. And to have this condition and then your father not support you, it's just very traumatic. His dad was evil. Because of the in and out of hospital stint, he missed a lot of school. And so then his dad would call him stupid. And it was just like this, like, rolling down a hill of horrible things for poor John Wayne Gacy. Meaning poor John Wayne Gacy as a child, not as an adult. We'll get there. What I think is so interesting is how this child turned into the monster that we got later. He didn't deal well with his childhood. He didn't deal well with his homosexuality. He didn't deal well with the things going on in his life. And that, you can see, contributed to things as we move on. I think his case specifically is interesting to me because you see the parallels. You see how his dad would beat him in the basement, and then later on, he would put his victims in a crawl space. He would put his underwear, he would bury it. You know, it was like he was burying all the stuff he didn't want to deal with, and his homosexuality and these later on these unalivings, he was burying it. He was trying to just move on. Psychology in multiple unalivers is the most interesting thing to me, because how did we get here? How? It's also a huge parallel in he was abused by a person in power, a contractor nonetheless, that his dad worked with, and then he became a contractor who would abuse people under him. Like, you just see these parallels in this man's life. It's crazy. What we see a lot of times with multiple unalivers is this thing called the McDonald triad. It is like 3 things, or a list of things that multiple unalivers usually experience in their childhood. These 3 are bedwetting, setting fires, and torturing of small animals. Gacy exhibited none of these. He had none of them growing up. But yet he was abused, and yet he ended up being one of the most notorious and scary and evil people alive. It's very interesting how Gacy is just not like the norm. This is where I'm going to end part 1. This is going to be a series, of course, on John Wayne Gacy, but also a series on multiple unalivers. I'm deep diving. Like I said, I will go into their childhood, their early years, and beyond, because this stuff needs to be studied, I feel like, and I'm interested in it, and I'm sure you guys are. So join me, please. Follow, like, subscribe, do all of the things, please. And I will be seeing you in part 2 for this evil, evil monster, John Wayne Gacy.